they will answer that for 2 minutes. And if each candidate wants to make a rebuttal, they will have the opportunity to do so. All they have to do is raise their hand. So now we start with opening statements. We start with
Hi guys, I want to thank the Science Club and Bala for hosting this debate, and Professor Leventhal for joining me. And I'm really excited about this. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I just want to say, I hope we learn a lot. I have a lot of respect for Professor Leventhal. I think he wants what's best for America, and that what he says is from the heart. We have some very strong differences of opinion. It's not personal, but it's just honest, sincere differences of opinion, and we're going to sort of go through those today, and hopefully you guys can make up your own minds. I just want to say a few quick things about why I'm not supporting President Obama. In 1980, Ronald Reagan asked the simple question of Jimmy Carter, he said, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Right? So you can just ask yourself that simple question. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Let's look at a couple of the facts, right? The national debt when Obama took over, $10.5 trillion. All right, he took over in 2008, $10.5 trillion in debt. The national debt, I checked last night, $16.2 trillion. That is the single largest increase in the national debt by any president in American history. Bush was pretty bad. Bush was the worst before Obama came along. Bush was a disaster. Obama came in, added almost $6 trillion. We spend over $1 million per minute on the debt. The debt is going up under Obama, $1 million per minute. By the time I finish talking, another $2 million in debt. Unemployment was at 7.8% under Obama when he came in. 4 years later, it hasn't gone down. It's the same. It's 7.8. For 3 years, it was over 8% for 3 years. Okay, that's not a recovery. Unemployment, we have 24 million Americans that are unemployed or underemployed today. How about food stamps? When Obama came in, there were 32 million Americans on food stamps. Today, 2012, there are 47 million Americans on food stamps. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? The average family income is now $50,000. The average family's income has gone down under the Obama administration by 8%. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Let me talk about just a couple of things that I think President Obama's words convict him. Not what I say, what he said. What has he said? What has he promised? In 2008, he called George Bush's debt, quote, unpatriotic and irresponsible. Unpatriotic and irresponsible. Those were his words. What does he say about his $6 trillion in debt? He promised to cut the deficit in half. If I could have 10 seconds more. He promised to cut the deficit in half. He promised to cut the deficit in half. Every year, the deficit has been going over $1 trillion every year. He has failed in what he himself said he was going to do. Thank you.
Professor Leventhal?
Yeah, hi. I apologize. I didn't know we were doing opening statements, so I don't have an opening statement prepared. I'll wing it. I'd like to join Professor Rosen in thanking me for being here. And thanking you guys as well. And the Political Science Club, although you're the Political Science Club, what you can be doing other than stuff like this. But thanks for doing this and getting it done with the ballot and all that things. Okay, fundamentally, this election is Romney wants to make this election about Obama. Are you better off than you the fact is, you actually are, but we'll get into that a little bit later. The idea that the debt has gone up. Okay, we're living in an economic cesspool right now that was not created by Obama. And ultimately, the Republican argument is, we took 8 years destroying this country's economy, and you haven't fixed it quickly enough. Okay, it's not fixed. The fact is, though, the United States economy is doing better than the other economies around the world, who are also in a global recession created by business misconduct, the finance community, and American policies during the Bush administration and previous administration. When things are bad economically and and you're in a crisis, you're in a recession, debt goes up. That's the way it works. Okay? As far as the deficit, it's come down during Obama's administration. Ultimately, they want to make this an election about Obama. The problem again with that is, first of all, you are doing better. The arguments against Obama are mostly fabricated. Professor Rosen and I agree that he and I have different opinions about a lot of things that we're talking about. The biggest problem, though, in America today is that Professor Rosen and I have different facts about what's going on in America, and that's a little more problematic, because the facts are facts. The deficit has gone down, not up. It hasn't gone down enough, but the fact is we're doing better than other countries. And bottom line, why are we not doing better? Obama can't say this in the debates because it makes him sound whiny. But the fact is the Republicans got slaughtered in 2006 and 2008 because they destroyed the U.S. and the world's economy. They made a decision that the only path back to political power for the Republican Party was to make sure that Obama could not fix the country. Imagine what would have happened if you were a Republican, you're running for political office. Okay? After Reagan and Bush, this country had the largest deficit it ever faced. Bill Clinton came in, and at the end of the Clinton administration, this country was in a surplus. We were operating at a profit.
5 seconds.
Then Bush came in, and we have again the biggest deficit in the history of this country. Okay? Running this country with a concerted effort by Congress to stop everything you want to do also needs to be looked at. But this race isn't just about Obama. Unfortunately for Romney, it's also about Romney. All right.
So now I'll be receiving questions from the audience.
Yes, I would say.
You mind speaking up just a little bit?
The United States is in a recession right now, and also European countries are in a recession right now. And the United States had a stimulus project and our economy is growing, but if you look across the EU, their debt crisis is getting worse because they're implementing austerity measures. And a lot of the countries that are growing right now, China has a stimulus package for their country after the recession. Brazil has a stimulus package for their country after the recession. So isn't it right to say that we should be taking on more debt to kind of get the economy moving again? Because the countries that aren't taking on more debt to get their economy moving are spiraling out of control.
Thank you for the question. Well, the answer is yeah, we have tried that. We took on Obama, by the way, he had a Democratic Congress for his first 2 years. Okay, we tried that. We passed an $800 billion stimulus plan. We took on $800 billion in debt under his stimulus plan. He promised that if we did that, unemployment would be down below 6%. It's not. It's been over 8%, just came down to 7.8%. So we tried that. It has not worked. What we do have now is another $6.5 trillion in debt. I just want to, Professor Leventhal mentioned that, the deficits have gone down under Obama. It's not true. Every single year under President Obama, we have had deficits above $1 trillion. He has not promised to cut the deficit in half. Those were his words. He has not done that. And last point, keep blaming Bush. Let's blame Bush, blame Bush, blame Bush, blame Bush. Harry S. Truman was a great Democrat. Harry S. Truman, one of my favorite presidents, he had a saying, "The buck stops here." Stop blaming the previous administration. You take credit for killing Osama bin Laden. You take credit for saving General Motors. You take credit for all the good things that you say you did, but you don't want to take credit for the $6.5 trillion in debt and the continued unemployment. Seems a little bit hypocritical to me. Thank you.
Actually, Jack is
I want to take this one. So I'm going to return back to your original point. I have a family member who's a staunch Republican and also a history major. And every time we end up in family discussions about the recession and the issues, he's like, well, why don't we do a New Deal? That's what fixed it in the past. We should be doing that now. And every time I turn to him and say, well, Obama keeps trying and the Republicans keep stopping him from doing it. The reason that our plan hasn't gone as far as perhaps we wanted to is because the Republicans wouldn't let Obama go as big as he wanted to. We need to take on a lot of debt because we have a lot of problems. You can't do little increments at a time. If you want to fix a problem quickly, you borrow a lot of money, you pour it on a problem, and you fix it. as Professor Leventhal wanted me to point out, we are in fact better than a lot of other countries because we had a stimulus package and we went forward with that. So frankly, the problem is that our stimulus package wasn't big enough. Not that we didn't have one, not that we didn't do it. We did it, we tried, our economy did get better, but not better enough because we didn't do a large or big enough stimulus package. So, yeah. Quick response. Do you want to continue or add anything?
If we still have time, I'll understand. Very quickly. We're proving we don't learn lessons from the past. We're revisiting what happened during the Great Depression. Again, the fact is the stimulus package, Professor Rosen says it didn't work. It did work. It clearly did work. This is one of the areas where we disagree as the facts. But every organization that's looked at it said the deficit has saved at least 2 million jobs, probably a lot more than that. And our economy is doing better because of the stimulus. This is what eventually the New Deal led us out of the Great Depression. Ironically, we had a double-dip depression in the Great Depression because after a couple of years of the New Deal, we decided that we were worried about debt, we were worried about deficit, we were reliving history. So what did we do? We decided to cut back on the New Deal and went back into another depression, which is what's going to happen if Romney becomes the president and actually cuts government spending the way he's discussed. As far as the debt, it is clear that over time the United States debt needs to be brought down. You don't bring down the debt, you don't tighten your belt at a time when things are really tough on your family. And right now we need stimulus to make this economy grow. And how big a problem right now is the debt? Well, if the financial community were worried about the size of America's debt, American borrowing right now would face high interest rates. Okay? That's what happens when lenders question your ability to pay money back. What are interest rates for the United States government borrowing right now? They're at historic lows. So the financial community right now is not concerned about the size of the United States debt and the deficit. Is it something that we'll need to get taken care of later on? Absolutely. It's not something that needs to be taken care of now. As far as the number of jobs and unemployment, there's a good reason why unemployment is still high. Okay? Private sector hiring is up. The problem is the states have cut back so much once the stimulus money ran out that they are firing teachers, cops, firefighters, construction workers, road builders, infrastructure repairers at such an alarming rate that is overcoming any private sector gains. Thanks.
Professor Rosenstein and Professor Leventhal went over the time limit. Would you like to rebuttal?
No, I think we'll go to questions.
Questions?
Professor Rosen, how can you account for Romney's constant change of opinion and views throughout his campaign?
Okay, that's a great question. The question was, how can I account for Romney's constant flip-flopping?
Yeah.
And the answer is, I can't. I don't like it. And I'm not going to make excuses for it. He has flip-flopped. He has lied. He has changed positions. I'm not going to deny that. All right? But so has Obama. Obama's, the greatest flip-flop in American history, came in 2008 from President Obama, candidate Obama. And that was the flip-flop when all of a sudden he said, who's Jeremiah Wright? I don't know the guy. Who's that? Who's that guy? He went to this church for 20 years, anti-American, anti-Semitic church, Marxist church. He goes there, Jeremiah Wright is his pastor. He marries them. He baptizes his 2 children. The Audacity of Hope, which was the title of his book, is taken from one of Jeremiah Wright's sermons. And then all of a sudden, when the videotapes came out in 2008, where you see Jeremiah Wright screaming and yelling, "Goddamn America, 9/11 was our fault," and all the crazy things he said, like HIV/AIDS was invented by white people to kill black people. All of a sudden, when all those things surfaced in 2008, Obama's like, well, who's Jeremiah Wright? I never met the guy. I don't know the guy. Who's that? So that, to me, that was a pretty big flip-flop on the president's part, but people don't want to talk about that anymore. But, both sides flip-flop. President Obama said he was going to cut the deficit in half. He hasn't done that. That's a flip-flop. That's a lie. President Obama said he was going to bring down the debt. It's increased. So, you know what? Am I going to make excuses for Mitt Romney's flip-flop? I'm not going to make excuses for Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney's flip-flop. Mitt Romney has lied. But I'm just going to say it's certainly no worse than the president.
But you see his views complete openness.
Go ahead.
It's completely changed him as a candidate, like in the last debate. He was basically constantly agreeing with him. In that sense, he was no different than President Obama.
You're right. You know what? Both of them stink. Go for a third party if you want.
Sure. No.
So, just a quick change. So, we're going to go from, instead of 2 minutes per candidate, we're going to go to 3 minutes, seeing as how they have a lot to say on the mind.
This is a question for Professor Leventhal. How come President Obama was very quick to take credit for the killing of Osama? That was his doing, which it wasn't, but not quick to take responsibility for the killing in the embassy when he was asked.
Why was Obama quick to take credit for killing Osama? Obama took credit to the extent that he took credit for killing Osama bin Laden because he killed Osama bin Laden. Because he made the decision to kill Osama bin Laden. And it's worth pointing out that when faced with the same decision, George Bush said, no, I will not go after Osama bin Laden. I will not go into Pakistan to kill Osama bin Laden. When asked the same question, Mitt Romney, when asked on the campaign, would you go? His response was, you know, Osama bin Laden is that big a priority now, and if we found him in Pakistan and had to go in and kill him, despite the fact that the Pakistani government did, we wouldn't do it. So the fact is, it was a decision he made. His Republican Secretary of Defense, which is a holdover from the Bush administration, calls it the bravest act the president has ever done. Okay, the Republican Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, who was the nanny forced upon Bush by the people whoever was left of the Republican Party with some sense, and spent the last couple of years as Bush's Secretary of Defense, said that it was tremendously brave and argued, and he said, I said, no, it was too risky, we shouldn't do it. And the fact is, Obama made a great choice then. Does he walk around crowing about it? No, only if you watch Fox News. But the fact is that he did. And as far as the embassy attack, again, I hate to say this, but sort of like Reverend Wright, this is what we're going to find an election over? This is, make a mountain out of a molehill? Imagine that, in a sort of a war zone in Libya, we didn't know immediately what had happened. There's nothing there. Just like there was nothing there with Reverend Wright. The guy went to a church. The guy, imagine that black preacher occasionally, as a black man, had some negative things to say about America. Shocking. There's really nothing there. Sorry.
I want to just a quick rebuttal. Couple of things. All right, making a mountain out of a molehill. First of all, with Reverend Wright, when someone says "God damn America," I was brought up in a patriotic household. I take that seriously. Okay? When somebody says, don't say God bless America, you should say God damn America. I take that. When a crazy guy says that white people invented AIDS to kill black people, I take that kind of seriously. When a presidential candidate is best buddies with this guy for 20 years. But a mountain out of a molehill, our ambassador in Libya was murdered. The first time in 30 years that an American ambassador was murdered, and 3 other Americans were murdered in Libya. That's more than making a mountain out of a molehill, okay? And for 2 weeks, the Obama administration went around with Hillary Clinton, they went around saying, well, this was just a spontaneous thing based on the video that was on YouTube. This wasn't an organized terrorist attack, but yet it was. It was an organized, concerted terrorist attack, and for 2 weeks, they said otherwise, which means one of 2 things. Either they were lying, or they are not competent. One or the other. Take your choice. But it's more, when a U.S. ambassador gets murdered by Al-Qaeda terrorists, that's more than making a mountain out of a molehill. That's a pretty big deal.
Can I just have 5 seconds? If we want to play guilt by association, you can associate Obama with Reverend Wright. I'll associate Romney with George Bush. So you decide which is the bigger problem. And there's 2 issues with Libya. Professor Rosa seemed to be getting into that Obama should have prevented this. After 8 years of the Bush administration, we're going to attack Obama because he didn't stop an embassy attack overseas. That's the worst we've got going for us?
This is to both of you guys. So you were talking about earlier a New Deal plan that should be enacted and stimulus plans. So one thing that's clear is that this country lags behind in efficient energies, in the production of new energy. And one of the bases of the New Deal was giving back to the land, right, with CPA and Public Works Administration. So with that in mind, how come not all the new deals that you're saying Obama has put into effect, or that Romney plans on putting into effect, are so concentrated on the big bank where we're missing the bigger picture? Where Brazil has turned itself into a world power through natural energy development, and where other countries around the world are clearly getting the message that we're not.
Okay, great question. Why haven't we used some of this money to develop more clean, renewable energy, right? I don't know. I like renewable energy. I think renewable energy is great. We're going to have to go in that direction at some point. We spent $1 trillion on a stimulus plan. Where's that money? What did we get for it? Where are the solar panels on every roof in every college in the country? Where are all the green jobs? Where are the 5 million green jobs? I'd like to know where all that money went. All right, we spent almost $1 trillion, and we throw that term around, $1 trillion, like it's nothing. Right? Do you guys even know what a trillion is? Do you have any clue? I'll give you a quick lesson. Bill Gates is the richest man in America, right? You take his entire net worth, every penny he has, you multiply that by 20, you get to $1 trillion. All right? So we've added $6 trillion in debt. So do the math. 120 Bill Gateses. So I don't know. Where has all that stimulus money gone? Where are the solar panels? Where are the windmill? I'd love to have windmill farms in Nebraska and Texas. Where are they? Where's my tax money? Where has it gone? It's gone to Solyndra and other bankrupt companies, as far as I know.
The question fundamentally is about the role of the United States government. The fact is, yes, the role of the United States government is to make investments in things in the future, which private companies are not going to do because the profits are so far removed in the future. Why haven't we have done it? You know from the debates that Romney has attacked Obama for investing in clean fuels. Why haven't we done more? Solyndra. You make a mistake or you give to a company and there's a loss and it's plastered all over the front pages of the newspaper. The fact is the Obama administration has a better record investing in companies than private equity firms have, than venture capital firms have investing in companies. We've done better. But the fact is if you make a mistake, it's plastered all over, again, all over the front pages, all over Fox News, and we move away from that. Why aren't we doing more to invest in clean energy? It's simple, because a lot of the decisions about how America works are being made by oil companies. And you saw it in a couple of debates. What's the answer our energy needs? Let's destroy every piece of property that we have on the planet and get every piece of oil out so we can face the same issue we face now 10 years from now. When we've already destroyed the Arctic Ocean, the National Wildlife Refuge, etc. The Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. We need to think ahead and we need to plan for the future. And that ultimately is a lot of what this election is about. Why haven't we done more? Because we spent the last bunch of years taking out of this economy rather than investing in America. Okay? Bush's plan for the surplus was, it's interesting that it comes up now. Okay? In 2000, the Republican Party attacked Al Gore for this concept of a lockbox. The United States had a surplus. What did Al Gore say we should do with it? We should take it, we should pay down debt and shore up our finances for the future. What did George Bush say? Let's give tax cuts primarily to rich people. Don't worry, we can afford it, everything will be fine. Well, who had the better plan? It's pretty obvious at this point. I don't have the number that Tim does, that the $1 trillion is 20 times what Bill Gates earned, but I will say this. That $1 trillion is probably about what the top 50 wealthiest Americans jointly enjoy, their wealth. So why, if you want to put $1 trillion in context, let's take Bill Gates and a bunch of the wealthiest Americans, the Koch brothers, Sheldon Adelson and all that, and let's add their money up. And then we'll find out where we're not investing in renewable energy and where our money's going.
That's just, you mentioned earlier about needing to go through a double dip recession, needing to spend and keep on spending.
Yeah, it's to avoid a double dip.
Well, no, you actually were crediting FDR's New Deal with enduring the double dip for seeing the bigger picture.
Let me try to elaborate. Apparently I misspoke. We instituted the New Deal and the economy started getting better. Then we started focusing on debt and we pulled back on the New Deal and the economy went into a double dip. So that's my argument that we need more stimulus, not less.
Okay, and in regards to,
Benjamin, that's where we at.
yeah, okay.
This is to Professor Roosevelt. You brought up Jeremiah Wright, which is a bit of a boogeyman, but one thing I found a bit curious that you sort of omitted was Mitt Romney's own ties to his church, the Mormon Church. Until the late 1970s, the Mormon Church was an officially racist organization. They labeled black people as being sort of afflicted with a racial curse because of some biblical story. Mitt Romney was an adult while this was going on, and he went overseas as a missionary to convert people to this racist cult. In addition to this, the Mormon Church would take the names of Holocaust survivors and try to slander and libel them as being not actually Jewish, but actually Mormons all along. How can you condemn Obama for his ties to Reverend Wright, while at the same time backing someone with these racist, anti-Semitic associations?
The Mormon Church, I'm not here to justify the Mormon Church. The Mormon Church changed that policy back in the 70s. Obviously, it was an abhorrent policy. What I do know is the fact that it wasn't that Barack Obama just simply belonged to this church. He was best buddies with Jeremiah Wright. Okay? He was best friends. He called Jeremiah Wright, quote, a great leader and a good friend. He was best buds with this guy. They were chums for 20 years. And then all of a sudden, in 2008, he flip-flops and says, well, I don't know the guy. So I really brought it up to show that the idea of flip-flopping. And if you want to talk about Romney flip-flopping, look at Obama's flip-flop. I'm not going to justify the racism of the Mormon Church back in the 70s. I'm glad that they changed their policy. I'm glad that they are no longer carrying on those racist policies.
Just real quick, Obama was never best friends with Reverend Wright. He never denied knowing Reverend Wright or going to his church.
I'm going to pause for a few seconds. When the candidates speak, you guys should try to keep it down, especially with boos or cheers, because that can be very disrespectful to the other side. Like, if you came up here, would you like it if someone booed or cheered at you? No. So, relax.
Okay, so my question is that Obama has been criticized during his candidacy for not being strong enough and trying too much to be bipartisan, especially in the beginning. So my question is, if he is reelected, do you think his character has substantially changed to allow him to be more effective and actually implement the policies that he would ideally want? Will he be able to implement his plan, or will it be a repeat of the last 4 years?
You're directed to me.
To everyone, I guess.
Go ahead next. Will he be better in the next 4 years?
Yeah.
Based on the things he's learned in the previous 4 years?
Exactly.
Well, I don't know, because I hope he's not going to be reelected. And, I mean, if the guy's failed, if you hire a guy to do a job, you give him a 4-year contract, you hire a baseball player like Alex Rodriguez, right? Give him a 4-year deal, and he screws up for 4 years, you don't want to give him another contract. You want to get somebody else in there, right? So, I don't think he'll be any different than he was the previous 4 years. I think we'll get a lot more of the same. I think he's pretty much laid out what he wants to do. And I think we'll get more of the same. So I think the best course for America is to bring in somebody else, give somebody else a try.
I think that's a great point. I actually need to speak to the Yankees. On that theory that Alex Rodriguez is Obama, I might as well be Mitt Romney, and you want to replace him, just replace him with anybody. It might as well be me playing third base for the Yankees. Which of course, again, is the question. It's not just enough that you don't like Alex Rodriguez. The question is, you replace him with somebody who's going to do any better. That's the relevant question. As far as Obama, there's no question. Obama, I'm going to say made a mistake, came into office. Obama has always been a conciliator. Obama has always been someone who works with the other side. He's always been a moderate, despite the way he's been portrayed. And he came in and he tried to work with Republicans. And that was a huge mistake because they made it perfectly clear that they would not work with him no matter what he did, even when he tried to institute Republican policies to address the problems that this country had. Again, the idea was if this country was doing well right now, would Mitt Romney be in this race? Okay, it would be a joke. We wouldn't even be here because it wouldn't be worth our time. So Obama tried to work with the Republicans, and that didn't work. After that, of course, the fact is the Republicans wouldn't work with him. And so he's limited as to what he could do, at least as far as things getting through Congress. Now, what he did learn over the last couple of years is that he's got to do whatever he can do that doesn't require congressional approval, because he's not going to be able to work with the Republicans. They will not support him. So the question, as far as I'm concerned, isn't really so much as Obama learned. The question is there any reason to expect that Tea Party Republicans, if they lose this election, would actually spend 4 years trying to make this country better, rather than trying to do everything they can to prepare the Republican Party for the 2016 elections? And the answer to that question, I fear, is no. But then the president can do what he can do with a recalcitrant Congress that he cannot work with. Then the question is that a preferred result? Clearly it's not. Would you rather the Tea Party people be running the country? Because that's what you're going to get with the Romney presidency. Okay? The Republicans in Congress have already made it clear. Romney flip-flopping, acts like a moderate, it doesn't matter who the real Romney is. The agenda for the next 4 years will be controlled out of Congress by the Tea Party.
First of all, I apologize because I don't know your names. The first question is for Obama's administration, and the second question I have is for both of you. First, how do you reconcile the fact that the promise you made in the first election that you were going to push for immigration reform, and the fact that your administration was the one that reported and persecuted the most illegal immigrants? And the second question is, why is immigration such a sensitive topic, and why governments have ignored for so long 30 million people?
Okay, you first this time?
Was the question directed at Professor Levin first?
Okay. A lot of it is, again, a lot of this is coming down to whether or not you love Obama versus Romney, right? It's not just, is Obama perfect, but look at our choices here. So Obama's been pushing for example, the DREAM Act, which would make it easier for illegal immigrants to become American citizens. When Romney was directly questioned during the debates on this issue, he sort of fudgingly said that what he really wants to do is everything the DREAM Act is attempting to do. And then Obama turned to him and said, you voted against the DREAM Act constantly and you've been fighting it this whole time. So you have to understand, while Obama might not be perfect, Obama's certainly the better option in this particular scenario. I'm going to give over to Professor Leventhal if he wants to more elaborate, but just briefly to address your second question. Why is immigration such a large issue? Immigration has been a large issue in the United States for a very long time. I mean, this isn't new. You can check out history, you can see periods in this country where we've shut down immigration entirely, where we've been racist in who we allow into this country. I mean, it's not new. It's not new that we're very sensitive to immigration. I believe the public perception right now is the idea that people are coming into this country and you know, the rhetoric, sort of taking our jobs and using up our resources, which obviously I'm assuming is you as an individual and many other people here know is that's a blanket statement and is inherently just too broad to be worth anything. But immigration is not a new issue. Immigration is an issue a lot of westernized countries actually are struggling with right now to try to figure out what the optimum balance is. That issue is just becoming very prominent right now in America, and I mean, it's obviously something both sides are addressing in very different ways. Would you like to elaborate?
No, question. As far as Obama's immigration policies, he promised to do immigration reform in his first term, right? So Professor Leventhal, the Democrats, like constantly blame Bush, blame the Republicans, blame Bush, blame the Republicans, right? President Obama had a Democratic Congress for his first 2 years, the House and the Senate, all right? They controlled all branches. Well, not the Supreme Court, but they controlled the Congress, okay? He had a Democratic Congress. Did he do what he said he was going to do? The answer is no. Whatever your viewpoint is on illegal immigration, he didn't do what he said he was going to do. That's a fact. Those are his words. As far as the DREAM Act, I just want to say a word about that because I think it goes to Obama's numerous violations of the Constitution. I actually support the DREAM Act. I think if you come here as a kid, and this is the only country you ever know, and you haven't committed a crime, we should not deport you. Okay? I support the idea of the DREAM Act, but it was supposed to be passed by the United States Congress under Article 1 of the Constitution. Unfortunately, it failed in Congress. What did Obama do? He signs an executive order usurping the power of Congress, going around kind of saying, you know what, I'm just going to do what I want. I'm not going to enforce the law. I'm sworn as a chief law enforcement officer. Under Article 2, my job is to enforce the laws. The Constitution says I have to enforce laws. I say, well, I like the DREAM Act. Congress, you guys didn't pass the DREAM Act, so I'll just do what I want. I'll just do it anyway. So even though I agree with the DREAM Act, what Obama did, in all honesty, was a violation of the Constitution. Just like his passage of NDAA. I don't know how many of you have heard of NDAA. Look it up. All right, he's had numerous violations of the Constitution, and what he did with the DREAM Act, in an election year, by the way, just coincidentally, I think is very telling. Right? He waits to 2012 to do this whole executive order thing on the DREAM Act. Why didn't he do this in his first year in office? Why didn't he do this immediately if it was so important? He didn't, but he violated the Constitution.
Okay, very quickly, a very quick response. I'd just like to point out to any accusations against President Obama in terms of what he did and did not do in the first 2 years when he had a Democratic Congress. You don't have a Congress. Your congressional individuals need to vote differently based on their constituents, of course, which means President Obama wants to push something forward. He can't crack the whip, pun intended, and bring and bring all of the Democrats in line and say, you must vote this way and this. Maybe Republicans can do that, but Democrats have a wide variety of opinions, as I'm sure all of you know, and Republicans do as well. You can't insist that you can push something through just because Congress happens to be a majority Democrat. There's far more factors involved in getting anything through Congress. So just a quick response to that one point.
Just also, if I can add real quick, Professor Rosenberg, there's something called the filibuster. Democrats had a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate for less than a year until Ted Kennedy died and was replaced by Scott Brown in Massachusetts. But again, what you have here is Republicans attack Obama for not being bipartisan enough, and then they attack Obama for when he had a Democratic Congress not ramming everything through despite all of their objections. I don't think he can have it both ways. He made a mistake, he tried to work with Congress. He figured that whatever laws he passed would have much more support from the American public if they were seen as bipartisan. So he did not want to ram things through while he had a filibuster-proof majority, which was less than.
And two things. For those who have come late, on the Obama side, that's Professor Leventhal. On the Romney side, that's Professor Rosenthal.
And Jackie Wolpo.
Josh Schleifer.
Who we'd really like to hear from, by the way.
Thank you for putting me on this side.
And another thing, since there are a lot of students here who are really eager to ask questions and we don't have that much time for the sake of efficiency, try to only ask just one question. No two-parters, I'm sorry.
Try to make it an actual question and not an anecdote.
Yes.
Do you agree that easier access to food stamps and welfare maybe discouraging Americans from looking for a job? Maybe this could explain why unemployment is so high.
Does easier access to food stamps and make Americans? It's a good question. I think I believe in the food stamp program. I think if people are poor and through no fault of their own, they're down on the luck, we should help them out. Okay. The fact is, we had 32 million people on food stamps when Obama came in. Now we got 47 million. You know, Ronald Reagan once said the best social program is a job. So I'd rather see people with good paying jobs, okay, who can earn their own dinner and support their family rather than having 47 million Americans on food stamps, a 46% increase under Obama. So does it discourage people from looking? I don't know. I'm not a sociologist, but I do know this. If people had good paying jobs, if the economy was growing like it should be, if Obama's policies were working, the food stamp rolls would be going down, not up.
Food stamps are basically for children. So the question becomes, do you think, as Newt Gingrich does, that one of the problems with America is that our children are too lazy, they're not working hard enough. Children need to work more jobs. I think that really puts the focus on, let's face it, what this election is mostly about. Do you believe that the problem with America is that the wealthy have suffered too much in this country over the last bunch of years? Do you think the problem with America is that the wealthiest 1% don't have enough, they're taxed too high, they're asked to contribute a little too much to America? Do you believe that 47% of Americans who are too poor to pay income taxes are irresponsible, lazy? I'm talking old people, veterans, children, disabled people. Do you believe, as Mitt Romney does, that these people are basically a bunch of mooches? Or do you believe that the American economy has been set up to benefit very few and harm everybody else? We learned, again, history repeating itself, we learned before the last time we had income inequality approaching what we've had over the last few years in this country was right before the Great Depression. It's not a coincidence. You can't run a country when most of your country doesn't have enough money to buy stuff. So this is what we need to do in America. We need to attack children trying to eat. Okay? Yes, we should be giving food stamps. And the problem with the children collecting food stamps is not that they're not willing to work hard.
So you guys are talking about a lot of stuff, but you're missing basically something obvious that I think we should address. I want to talk a little bit about foreign policy. I want to talk Iran and Israel. Why is one better than the other? Why would Obama be better suited to run our country? How would he support Israel, the Middle East, what's going on over there? Or why would Romney be better? So this is actually for both of you guys. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Okay, so this is like huge switching gears here. I was all ready to talk about domestic policy and food stamps, but we'll take on Iran. Iran is 4 years closer to getting a nuclear weapon. All right, it's run by a lunatic named Ahmadinejad. President Ahmadinejad. Excuse me. The guy denies the Holocaust. He said the Holocaust never happened. He said there's no such thing as gay people. They don't live there. There are none. The guy has said that Israel should be wiped off the map. Seems to me sociopathic. Maybe he should be checked out by psychologists. I don't know, but I do know this. He's getting closer and closer to getting a nuclear weapon. And Obama likes to say, well, I'm going to put a stop to it. Benjamin Netanyahu came to New York. President Obama said, I'm sorry, I'm too busy to meet with you. I've got important meetings going on today with Whoopi Goldberg, Barbara Walters, Joy Behar, and the ladies on The View. I also got to hit up David Letterman. So I'm sorry, Mr. Netanyahu, I just can't fit you into my schedule right now. You know, he went around the Middle East on his apology tour a couple of years ago. It was an apology tour, okay? He didn't use that word apology, but the tone of his speeches, the rhetoric that he used, it was nonstop. He actually went to France. He called us arrogant in France. Told the French we were arrogant. He went to Egypt to apologize for all the bad things he did after 9/11. He skipped Israel. He hasn't visited Israel. He hasn't been there. Okay? And meanwhile, Ahmadinejad gets closer and closer and closer to getting a nuclear bomb. And what does Obama tell us? Well, all options are on the table. I'm not going to let it happen. Trust me. You know, take my word for it. Trust me on this. I'm not going to let it happen. Meanwhile, he's hanging out with the ladies of the view.
Okay, I'm not gonna address.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Let's go back to that point that he neglected to visit Israel. Just firstly, when Obama responded to that claim, he said that when he was in Israel during his campaign, that he went to Yad Vashem first. Now there's a little important fact that everyone needs to know. The foreign policy rule in Israel is that you have to visit Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Israel. So this notion that Romney went there to raise money and Obama went there to visit Yad Vashem is completely ridiculous. That's number one. Number two, let's imagine that another country wants to bridge ties, and they're going to come to the West. And they're going to come to the West, and they're going to visit Canada, let's say Mexico, and they're going to skip out on the United States of America. What does that sound like to you? Does that sound like someone wants to bridge gaps? And especially in the country where the most tension in the world right now is in Israel, between two sides. And he skipped out on that. And forget it, that's not even called, it's not even an apology tour. How about just saying, let's come together and bridge the gap? He specifically neglected the country that he needed to be with the most.
Okay. So, thank you for letting everyone know that Obama did go to Israel. I don't have to tell everyone that. We know he did. But more importantly, I just want to say that Obama has stated unequivocally on multiple occasions that he is in support of Israel. He said it during the debate, no question. He's in support of Israel. He's been a supporter of Israel his entire 4 years as president, and I have no doubt he'll continue to be a supporter of Israel for the next 4 years, as he stated, and he has no reason not to be. Listen, Israel's not a perfect country, like every other country that Obama has to deal with. And occasionally, he's probably going to point that out. Netanyahu's not necessarily 100% popular with all Israelis right now. So yeah, there might be some strife over that. This doesn't mean Obama is anti-Israel in any way. This doesn't mean Obama doesn't care for Israel and want Israel to continue as an extremely in support of Israel as a country. Because he is. And that's not going away. Just like when you discuss things with any other country, you can't just give them, oh yes, we support you no matter what you do. You need to be, that is pandering. When you meet with a foreign country, you need to be meeting as equals. You need to be able to say, that looks great, this isn't great, and that country needs to be able to say the same thing back to you. If we can't do that, if all we do is go, yay, Israel, you're perfect, all the time, you're pandering to Israel, you're saying America's so much better than Israel, that's a problem. On the other hand, though, when you're saying, if you visited North America, you visited, the Americas area and skipped United States versus visiting the Middle East and skipping Israel. First of all, Obama's been to Israel and had maintained relationships with Israel the whole time. It wasn't like he didn't speak to Israelis.
Not while he was president. He's never been to Israel while he was president.
I know, he's never been to Israel while he was president. Yeah, okay.
And both were in Israel during their run.
Okay, fine. He's never been to Israel while he was president. I don't know if you know this, but it's really complicated when a president leaves the country. And it's really complicated for foreign countries and presidents are there. Whatever. It's him not going to Israel is not necessarily him saying, I'm not speaking to Israel, because he obviously is speaking to Israel. It might be saying it wasn't important for that particular time, or it wasn't a good time on Israel's side. There's a lot of other more complicated things that go into traveling, but I wanted to address a specific issue that I'm going to try to come back to. Traveling in that area is not like the Americas, where you've got like 4 or 5 countries to deal with. He had a lot of countries to deal with, and he didn't happen to go to Israel that time. He'd been to Israel, he was keeping open communication lines with Israel at that time.